Hey guys, it's Miss Forbes here, also known as Social Studies Scholar, and today I want to just kind of debrief and talk to you guys a little bit about an activity that I did with my students called Structure Academic Controversy. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with a Structure Academic Controversy, it's a method that's been around for a while in education, in the classroom, whether it's higher ed, secondary ed, or whatever the case may be. And so it's basically where you have a central question. It could be, a historical question. Like, for example, my kids today were African Americans free during Reconstruction, right? And what it consists of is having documents or a certain reading that students access beforehand. They kind of analyze and dissect those documents. And then they have the question, right? You split them up into teams, team A, team B. Team A has one viewpoint, team B has the other viewpoint. Team A argues, not necessarily argues, but presents, right, facts from the evidence, from the documents that they have to kind of prove their point. While Team A is presenting, Team B is taking down notes on what they say. When they get finished, Team B then tells them what they said, right? And then it flip-flops. And then Team B would present while Team A listens. Team A takes notes, doesn't interrupt or anything like that, right? Then at the end, both sides abandon, right, their sides that they were defending, and they basically come up with their own synopsis, right? And they're able to kind of come together as a group and decide, what viewpoint they want to take. And then you can have them, write a paragraph. My kids, wrote a paragraph and they submitted it in Canvas. But today was actually my first time doing it with my 11th grade United States Virginia history students. And it's crazy because this is something that I learned to do years ago, and I just hadn't gotten around to doing it just yet, And so this is my third year teaching at the high school that I'm at, and I had never used this method before. Of course, last year we were virtual, so I didn't really want to try my hand at a structured academic controversy virtual style, right? So we did it today, and I just have a couple of tips and lessons from my personal experience today. So one of the tips that I would give is know your students, right? And know that you can tweak these things to fit the needs of your kids. Like for me, for example, one of the things I did, I didn't give them all the historical documents in the same day. I gave them the historical documents the previous class. So previous class was about it was a jigsaw. So they had A, B, C, D, E documents. So they had 5 documents. And in groups of 4 to 5, they worked on those documents individually. And then they shared their responses with each other and told each other about their primary source, right? So we did that the day before. So, and I set the expectation for them, that when they come to class the next day, then they will be engaging in learning how to do the structured academic controversy. And another tip is, if you feel like you may not be able to explain it that well, there's actually a video that I like to show that talks about structured academic controversy. I can actually link that in the bio here. It's about a 9-minute video. So know your students. My students were fine. It said 9 minutes, but it seemed a lot quicker. They were actually engaged with the teacher from Chicago Public Schools, actually implementing the structured academic controversy in her classroom. And so it's a really good video. You can show that to the kids, right? And just set them up so that they understand what it is, right? One of the things that I encountered was I noticed that the kids were writing down a lot of evidence for their viewpoint, but when they were actually presenting the information, they were finishing in 2 seconds. And I was just like, why are they finishing so fast, So maybe some tips I would give is to show them an example of what a good argument is and how they can really take that viewpoint and expand upon it versus just reading off the bullet points that they wrote down for their evidence, right? And I guess it also depends on what question you have as well that they're trying to answer. But my kids' question today was, were African Americans free during Reconstruction? They could either say, yes, African Americans were free during Reconstruction, or no, African Americans were not free during Reconstruction. And they had to use the documents and for evidence, right, to prove their point one way or another. And so, those are some tips that I would add. And then also, if I compare classes, right, because today I only had 2 classes. I had a second period and I had a 6th period, right? Second period, it went it was awesome. The kids were engaged. They, spoke to each other. They had good evidence and everything like that. And then my sixth period, it did not go the same way because the kids, it was the end of the day. The kids were like kind of unmotivated, kind of tired, not really wanting to talk to each other that much or not really understanding. And so one of the things that I did learn too is to, when you give the instructions, whether structure, academic controversy, just give one instruction at a time. Like say, hey, team A, present. Team B, you're listening, taking notes, boom. Like, I think I made the mistake of trying to explain all the steps, and then they were kind of like getting scatterbrained and like, wait, what do we do now? And I was just like, okay, next time I'm just gonna literally baby step them, walk them step by step through as we're doing it. That way they don't have to remember what comes next, even though I gave them my paper, right, with the steps listed on it that said that what was coming next. But it's okay, because we dealing with high schoolers, we know how the brains work, right? So those are just some tips. Those are some things that I learned from using a structured academic controversy. It is kind of the opposite of a Socratic seminar, and students are able to practice, different viewpoints and their listening skills, as well as coming to a consensus and working as a team, working as a group to be able to present, but it's more low stake because they're not presenting to the class. They're only presenting in their groups. So hopefully, if you're a teacher out there and you're wondering, should you use this in your classroom? I'm a social studies teacher, so, social studies scholar here. Highly recommend using structured academic controversy in your social studies classroom, no matter what social studies subject you teach, whether it's history, government, politics, whatever the case may be, geography, because it is something that gets the kids civically engaged, right? So hopefully that was helpful to you guys. If it was, leave me a comment below. If there's anything else that you want to, hear me talk about, I'm have a good little background knowledge, you know what I'm saying? History is my thing, but also pedagogy, and I love to engage students and making learning fun, because social studies is fun to me, right? So if you guys have any questions, comments, comment below, share this video. If you know somebody who wants to do a structured academic controversy but they don't know where to start, all my information is going to be in my YouTube bio. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.